Good afternoon. I am Joseph P. Abiera, and I'm here today to tackle about Lesson 1 Institutional Based Correction. Present Antiquity to Modernity, the Influence of Roman Catholic Church, Pope John Paul, the Propile Pope, Walnut Street Jail, King Henry VIII, King Edward VI, a jewel of King Henry VIII. Prison Antiquity to Modernity. First, we need to define what is prison. Prison it is a place where the lawbreakers or criminals being confined for their serious crime, just like committing murder, they are being punished or confined in jail then after to prison. From the birth of new civilization, almost ancient civilization used the concept of prisons in which to detain or confine incarcerated people. In those early periods of history, prisons were often used as a temporary stopgap before sentencing to death or life of slavery. But as time went on and our civilization developed, prisons started morphing into correctional facilities that started implementing the concept of rehabilitation and reform of prisoners. The earliest records of prisons came from first millennia, located in areas of mighty ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. During these times, prisons were almost stationed in the underground dungeons, where guilty or suspected criminals spend their whole life either awaiting death sentence or command to become slaves. So there is example of a picture of prison in Greece. So prisoners were held in poorly isolated buildings where they could often be visited by friends and family. Primary source of their detention were not dungeons, high walls or bars, but simple wooden blocks that were attached to their feet. Ancient so muna siya this is example of ancient prison of Greece. Then Roman Empire. Ancient Roman Empire however continued to use harsher methods. So ang Roman Emp- so the Roman Empire mo kana mostly most most of their method in sentencing the criminals were so kind harsh, so which means brutal or brutal or not having the concept of human rights. Then as slavery was accepted norm in those days, majority of prisoners that were not sentenced to death were sold as slaves or used by the Roman government as workforce. One of the most famous uses for the slaves in the Roman Empire was gladiators. Then this is example of Roman Empire cell. So what is gladiator? The word gladiator comes from the Latin gladius or sword. Definitions of gladiator in ancient Rome: a professional combatant or a captive who entertained the public by engaging in mortal combat. So a type of battler, belligerent, combatant, fighter, scraper, someone who fights. So the gladiator, this is a type of person or the slaves which they work they work for the government in which they entertain they entertain or make they entertain or they make the other government or people in the Roman Empire happy by doing something which is very dangerous, like fighting lions, or they fight to each other with their life. The conditions in the European prisons remained harsh until English royalty started being more involved with their justice system. Henry II commissioned the construction of first prison in 1166 together with the first draft of English legal system that used the concept of jury. One of the most historic prison legislation was introduced in 1215 when King John signed Magna Carta, which stated that no man could be imprisoned without trial. With the rise of the industry between 16th and 18th century, English prisons became overcrowded, and new penal measures started being implemented. Military pardon and penal transportations. During the end of 18th century, over 50,000 prisoners were transported from England to penal colonies in North America and Australia. France even continued the practice of penal colonies until the middle of 20th century, most notably in French Guiana and its infamous prison Devil's Island. And Russia also used remote penal colonies in the frozen northeast Siberia. Magna Carta. Magna Carta or Great Charter is a document guaranteeing English political liberties that was drafted at Runnymede, a widow by the River Thames, and signed by King John on 1215 on 15 under pressure from his rebellious barons. By declaring the sovereign to the subject to the rule of law and documenting the liberties held by freemen, it provided the foundation for individual rights in Anglo-American jurisprudence. The age of modern prisons that we know today started with our several prisons reforms in 19th century England. During that time, prisoners started receiving more care, concept of rehabilitation was introduced, and governments around the world started reconsidering their views on solitary confinement, which was primary source of the increased numbers of insane suicidal and catatonic prisoners. Wars that engulfed the world in the beginning of 20th century brought the formation of large amounts of war prison camps and concentration maps. So, in the age of modern prisons, not all criminals kanang treated without the concept of human rights. They provide in this century or time, they care. They always care the prisoners, or they give more care about the prisoners, or they give the concept of human rights. Why is prison good for society? For me, prison is good and important to our society because it protects us from danger. And also prison is the way so that the incarcerated people or the offender of the crime realize the wrongdoings and given a chance to be renewed. Prison is better but somehow had advantage and disadvantage. So what is the advantages of prisons? So this is some advantages of prison. First, protects society from dangerous and violent crimes. Isolates those who deserve such as punishment from their family and friends. Stops offender or reoffending as they lack away. Act as a deterrent. Ensure that the law is respected and upheld. And last, gives offenders a chance to reflect on their actions and gives them time to reform their behavior. So these are the advantages of prison. Like it protects us from the violent criminals. The criminals will be isolated by putting them into jails or in prison, and by making them to be renewed or to be more cautious of what they do. Is it good or bad? Can, and they can also learn some knowledge about something in the law, or what they did in the other person, which makes them a criminals or the lawbreakers. And there is also some disadvantages of prisons. First, it is expensive. School of crime. Prison educate each other in criminal matters. So not all criminals which they are being put into jail, they will be renewed. There are some people or criminals, they just still continue their wrongdoings, and them that's what makes the prison school of crimes or the criminals, because all criminals are being put together, and and this is also the result of their relations or communication, because they have the same thinking, bad habits, because they are alike, they're all criminals, but In some points, not all, not all are the same. Then prison, then prison often breed resentment and determination to get back at society. Most prisoners reoffend on release, so it does not bring about reform. Prison records make it difficult to get a job on release, which can lead back into crime. So, this also the advantages. If you are a lawbreaker or a criminal, then if you have the record in the authority, the government, or in the police station, which you are a convict, and a convict, you are you you cannot easily find a job because no one will easily accept you because you have the past wrongdoings. They will not be because they will not be so not because they just to be more careful. Offenders' families suffer through not fault of their own. Relations often break down while present in prison. So most of the relationship with peoples kinda will be so some relationship will be separated or will break. Then that's the negative effect of the in which person in which your half in your life or your brother or husband were in jail, though it can lead us to negative effect, which is your 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 finances in the family or your or which is what is that your finances in the family or food, and it also lead us to not be a loyal. You can have the which is you can covet or can love some other people even though you have husband or partner in your life which is they are in prison. Does prison makes us safer? According to the research, we incarcerate for multiple reasons, including justice and punishments. But one of the main justification is public safety. Putting individuals convicted of crimes, especially violent crimes, in prison is thought to make the rest of us safer. There are good reasons to think prison might prevent crime. The experience of imprisonment could deter someone from committing crimes to avoid prison in in the future. Prison might provide opportunities for rehabilitation, such as drug and alcohol treatment, education, or counseling. And the very least, someone who is in prison cannot commit a crime in the community and affect criminologists called incapacitation. So, is the prison in the Philippines really effective? Based on research done by many authors, scholars, criminologists, sociologists, various survey agencies, some evidence has been presented on success of prisons. They argue that prisons are effective. According to Goodman 2006, who was former Decision Director of Education as well as former chair of Independent Monitoring Board, prisons are effective and help prisoners changing from criminals to law-abiding citizens. Public can play a big role and make their life better. Prisons offer very special courses such as anger management courses to rehabilitate them. Intensive courses are also offered to help prisoners overcoming their drug problems. According to the economic theory of crime, developed by Becker, offenders are different, and each of them offends due to different reasons. Then, what is the main purpose of prison? Prison have four major purposes. These are retribution, incapacitation, deterrence, and rehabilitation. First, what is retribution? So retribution means punishment for crimes against society. Depriving criminals of their freedom is a way of making them pay a debt to society for their crimes. So, for example of this is being put to jail or in prison. These are the example of retribution which the criminals are being punished for their committed crime. Incapacitation refers to the removal of criminals from society so that they can no longer harm innocent people. So they are they have the same kind of meaning, or they are almost alike because it also refers the removing of criminals which is being put into prison or jail. Deterrence means the prevention of future crime. It is hoped that prisons provide warnings to people thinking about committing crimes, and that this possibility of going to prison will discourage people from breaking the law. So deterrence means prevention of the future crime. The example of this is the our our law, which is being discussed or being taught in our teacher or instructors. The warnings, which we also see in different places, and also what is this? Some other workers in the government also makes a program in every barangay in which they give lessons or knowledge to the teenagers. Example, which is the drugs. They taught us what is its kanang what is its effect, or the negative effect in a person, or in or if you take this kind of illegal drug. Then rehabilitations refers to activities designed to change criminal into law-abiding citizen, and may include providing educational courses in prison, teaching job skills, and offering counseling to a psychologist or social worker. So rehabilitation, this is the this is the activity in which the prisoners or the criminals which committed crime being taught or being cleaned or renewed. They are being taught by the teachers or press in the prison, in which in which in which it can also ease their mind or erase the wrongdoings in their mind. What is the difference between jail and prison? Jail and prisons are often used interchangeably as places of confinement. Jail can be used to describe a place for those who are waiting for trials or held for minor crimes, whereas prison describes as a place for convicted criminals or serious crimes. So jail and prison is has a difference. So when we talk about jail, so this is a not what is this? You are still not guilty. So you still wait for the trial or the court trial in which it it decides in your crime if you are guilty or not. Then prison, this is a place where you are being put in if you are successfully being being held in the court or trial, and the judge is decided if you are guilty or not. Walnut Street Jail. Experiment with prisoner isolation began in the 19 and in the 1790s at the Walnut Street Jail located between 5th and 6th Streets behind the Pennsylvania State House or the Independence Hall. Opened in 1775, the Walnut Street Jail functioned as a holding facility housing the accused until they went to trial. In 1789 and 1790, Pennsylvania passed legislation to convert a portion of the Walnut Street Jail into a penitentiary house for more serious offenders. Under that arrangement, King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII is best known for his 6 wives and several mistresses he kept on the side. The monarch's desperate quest for political unification and a healthy male heir drove him to annul 2 marriages and have 2 wives beheaded. His chaotic love caused an unstable succession. foreign policy implication, and even led to the break with the Church of Rome. These are the following King Henry's wives. First, Catherine of Aragon in 1485 to 1536, demoted for bearing no son. Henry took the throne in 1509 at the age of 17. 6 weeks later, he married Catherine of Aragon, daughter of the King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain, and widow of his elder brother Arthur. From the moment young Henry took nuptials, he obsessed over continuing the Tudor line. Anne Boleyn, 1501 to 1536, the union that sparks the Reformation beheaded. Jane Seymour, in 1508-1537, died after giving birth to male heir. Anne of Cleves, 1515 to 1557, strategic six-month marriage. Catherine Howard, in 1523 to 1542, Richard then executed. Catherine Parr in 1512 to 1548, peacemaker outlawed Henry. Why is King Henry VIII important? King Henry VIII ruled England for 36 years, presiding over sweeping changes that brought his nation in the Protestant Reformation. He famously married a series of six wives in his search for political alliance, marital bliss, and a healthy male heir. Of all Henry's wives, Borman says Catherine Parr had the most influence upon the widest variety of areas, including court culture, religion, and the role of women and education of Henry's children. She also persuaded Henry to restore his daughters Mary and Elizabeth to the order of succession, and acted as regent when Henry went to war with France. Bormann explains Catherine died in 1548, a year after Henry's passing. So, King Henry VI, a jewel of King Henry VIII. Edward VI, King of England and Ireland, born at Greenwich on the 12th of October 1537, was the only child of Henry VIII by his third wife Jane Seymour, who died of the puerperal fever 12 days later. The story that the mother's life was deliberately sacrificed by the performance of caesarean section is unfounded, although Jane's death was little noticed amid the rejoicings which greeted the advent of a male heir to the throne. On January 28, 1547, Henry VIII died, and Edward, then aged 9, succeeded to the throne. Henry had decreed that during Edward's minority the government was to be run by a council of regency, but in fact Edward's uncle, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, wielded almost supreme power as regent, with the title of protector. The religious divide between Catholicism and Protestantism would permit Edward's short 6-year reign, as despite his father's break from Rome, residual elements of Catholic worship still existed whilst the new Protestant doctrine was introduced. Nevertheless, Edward was a devout Protestant and embraced it wholeheartedly. In January 1553, Edward showed the first signs of tuberculosis, and by May it was evident the disease would be fatal. Working with Northumberland, he determined to exclude his two half-sisters, Mary and Elizabeth, from the succession and put Northumberland's daughter-in-law, Lady Jane Grey, and her male heirs in direct line for the throne. As a result, a power struggle erupted after Edward's death. Lady Jane Grey ruled for 9 days, July 10 to 19, 1553, before she was overthrown by the power of popular May 1st, 1553 to 58. Edward displayed the potential for effective administration, but many scholars have felt that he lived his religious zeal and extreme obstinacy might have confronted a much firmer and more uncompromising Protestantism in the Church of England. That's all. Thank you.